stated, I think the hardest part of injury is something I'm still really battling and almost struggling with is just the mental hump of getting over everything, Caitlin Clark said on Wednesday before the Fever game. Now, the Indiana Fever did beat the Los Angeles Sparks. She goes on to say, I understand my body too well to a point now, she stated, and it's something I wasn't in touch with enough before my injuries, and now I understand it very well. You just become hyper cautious about certain.
Caitlin Clark isn't just being cautious anymore, she's admitting something far deeper. For the first time, the superstar guard openly revealed that she no longer fully trusts her own body after the injuries she battled last season. And for a player whose entire identity has been built on confidence, aggression, and fearlessness, that confession speaks volumes. What makes this so important is that Clark said the challenge is now mental as much as physical. During her ESPN interview on Wednesday, she explained that she's still working through the fear of whether her body can hold up again. It's not about conditioning or talent. It's about regaining the belief that her body won't let her down when the pressure rises.
That is what it is. So Caitlin Clark's back is out of line. Now, I do know this is a very common thing. And for her to be, it just makes me wonder the seriousness of it all, because that's a pretty common situation for your back. Now, Caitlin Clark went on to go a little bit more in depth.
Pay attention to the words she used. I understand my body too well now. That's not just an athlete talking about experience or training awareness. That sounds like someone who has become hyper aware of every little feeling, every bit of soreness, every moment of discomfort, to the point where it changes how they play. Clark admitted that before the injuries, she probably wasn't connected enough to what her body was telling her. But now, things have completely flipped. She's constantly thinking about it, constantly monitoring it, and that kind of mindset can become mentally exhausting for an athlete. And considering what she went through last season, it's understandable why. For the first time in her basketball career, college or professional, Clark had to deal with serious injuries, setbacks, and uncertainty. For a player who built her game on confidence and freedom, that experience clearly left a lasting impact mentally as well as physically.
The moment where my back tightened up, I think I almost got confidence from that because I came back in and I played 8 more minutes, so I felt great. Clark stated Wednesday, it's something I could take confidence from, but it's going to take me a little bit to really get over the mental hurdle of trusting my body. So based off what she's saying here is that she's definitely dealing with some mental issues, which I possibly believe in.
The most concerning detail might actually be the back issue. Clark revealed that her back can slip out of alignment pretty quickly, and during Wednesday's game against the Sparks, those trips to the bench weren't random. She was going back to have her back adjusted and put back into place. That's not something athletes deal with occasionally. That's an issue that needs constant attention and management. But the part that really stands out is what she said afterward. When her back tightened up during the game, she actually used that moment as confidence because she was still able to return and play 8 more minutes feeling good. Think about what that means for a second. Her confidence isn't coming from being completely healthy. It's coming from proving to herself that she can still perform even while dealing with pain and discomfort.
Think about everything that happened last year regarding Caitlin Clark's injury. It's kind of hard for us not to relate to her from that standpoint. This young lady balled out in college, never ever suffered an injury to our knowledge of her whole basketball career, collegiate or professionally. And for her to have that injury, you would expect some type of mental, I would say, impact. Anybody would. But moving on to another story, the Indiana Fever do.
To really understand the situation, you have to look back at what happened last season. Clark was officially shut down on July 13, 2024, after battling multiple injuries that kept piling up throughout the year. It started with ankle problems that never fully healed. Then the physical strain continued to build until the Fever ultimately decided ending her rookie season early was the safest move to avoid long-term damage. Before Wednesday's game, Clark had appeared in just one WNBA game since that shut down one game in more than 8 months. And even after all that recovery time, she's still dealing with back issues serious enough to need adjustments during games. That's why this feels bigger than a normal comeback story. This doesn't look like a player who's completely past her injuries yet. It looks more like someone's still managing ongoing physical problems while mentally trying to prove to herself that she can still compete at the highest level.
It's just very interesting, man. I feel like it is very interesting moving forward with how this season is going to go with the Indiana Fever. I would like to see Caitlin Clark go back to the pick and roll, but ultimately we don't know. Hopefully we see it tonight. Maybe it was just a reason why they didn't run with that pick and roll just like how they normally would, but I don't know, man. It's going to be very, very interesting. They got the Washington Mystics tonight, and they should get this dub. They should definitely get this one off.
What makes this situation even more important is the mental side of it. Clark openly admitted that it's going to take a little bit before she fully trusts her body again. Notice how uncertain that sounds. She didn't say a few games or a couple of weeks. She used a vague timeline because even she may not know how long this process will take. For elite athletes, the mental battle is often just as difficult as the physical recovery. Confidence, freedom, and trust in your body are everything at that level. Right now, Clark is still trying to rebuild that trust after the injury she dealt with last season. And whether the restrictions are coming from the Fever's medical staff being cautious or from Clark herself wanting to protect her body, the result feels the same. She's still being managed carefully instead of operating without limits. And that naturally creates questions about whether she's fully ready to handle the heavy workload expected from a superstar player.
White, I don't know what we gonna see, man. Who knows what we gonna see? Because we ultimately know that they lost to the Dallas Wings. Now, the Dallas Wings has yet to win a game since beating the Indiana Fever, and that's just shocking in itself. They having locker room woes, allegedly, based on what their head coach has been saying online. Let's pull it up real quick because he definitely spoke about the locker room hurdles. Wayne's coach says selfishness comments signifies early growing pains.
Fans are already reacting strongly to all of this, and one comment summed up the frustration perfectly. Putting limits on Caitlin Clark is like telling Michael Jordan he can perform, but he's not allowed to dance. That's the feeling many fans have right now. People don't tune in to watch Clark play carefully or spend key moments on the bench while the staff monitors her condition. They want to see the fearless, high-energy superstar that changed the league's popularity overnight. What's making the situation even more confusing is the Fever's official injury report before the Mystics game. Clark wasn't listed at all. No injuries, no limitations, nothing. Yet Clark herself just explained that she's still dealing with back problems that need constant maintenance and adjustments during games. So now fans are left questioning what's really going on behind the scenes. Either the team views these back issues as something manageable enough not to list officially, or there's a disconnect between what's being publicly reported and what Clark is actually dealing with physically on a game-to-game basis.
I possibly will be covering the Dallas Wings on the channel for the duration of the season. I think it's something that we have to pay attention to. Let's listen to some of this press conference from the Dallas Wings head coach, Jose Fernandez. Right now, let me get it pulled up. Let me play some of it.
It's not going to lie. Film's not going to lie. You know, coaches accuse, right? And even players accuse, but the film's going to convict our effort. Did we get over ball screens? Did we rotate? Did we cover backside block? What was our effort? You know? So, and then they got to look at themselves and hold each other accountable in the film.
Connect all of this together, a much bigger pattern starts to appear with how the Fever have handled Caitlin Clark this season. The limits on her deep logo threes, the carefully managed minutes, and even the decision to move away from the fast pick and roll system that worked so well last year. It all feels like an organization focused more on protecting its franchise player than fully unleashing her game. And to be fair, there may be legitimate medical reasons behind those decisions. The training staff can know far more about Clark's physical condition than the public does, especially after the injury she dealt with last season. But from a basketball perspective, from an entertainment perspective, and from the standpoint of why fans became obsessed with watching the WNBA in the first place, it creates a major problem. The version of Caitlin Clark that packed arenas and dominated headlines wasn't a cautious player constantly thinking about her body. It was the fearless, aggressive superstar playing freely and pushing defenses to the limit every single night.
To not play her in most of the fourth when you needed some of those baskets, and she was doing that when she was on the court.
She did, but you know what? We came out of halftime in pick and roll coverage, and we gave up 2 threes. So that's what happened there.
So that was the coaching just.
Yeah, it wasn't the issue. Wasn't getting more. We don't have a problem scoring, right? We scored 86, 88, whatever it was. That wasn't the problem. The problem was on the defensive end. Did she have a great first half? Yes, that's why she started in the second half. But we felt that we needed to go in a different direction defensively.
Gotcha. So
yeah.
Also, when you.
What makes this story so powerful is that Caitlin Clark openly admitted she's still fighting mental hurdles after her injuries, something elite athletes rarely talk about publicly. While that honesty could inspire others dealing with similar struggles, it also reveals vulnerability that opponents can notice and target on the court. The Fever is still trying to balance protecting Clark's health while also depending on her to carry the team. But the cautious system, limited freedom, and constant focus on managing her body seem very different from the fearless player fans watched dominate last season. Now the biggest question is whether Clark can fully regain trust in her body and return to playing freely again. Because sometimes the toughest recovery for athletes isn't physical. It's mental.